My mother-in-law is pressuring me to give my 3-year-old daughter to my sister-in-law and her husband. She's even threatening to take me to court, accusing me of being an irresponsible parent, which I'm not. I never imagined that my biggest battle would be against my own mother-in-law. It all started with subtle comments about my parenting, but soon, she was demanding that I hand over my 3-year-old daughter to my sister-in-law and her husband. According to her, they deserved a child more than I did. When I refused, she did not just stop at guilt-tripping me. She went as far as threatening legal action, accusing me of being an irresponsible parent. The worst part? She had convinced nearly everyone in the family that I was unfit to raise my own daughter. I felt trapped, outnumbered, and afraid of what she might do next. But what she did not know was that I was prepared to fight for my daughter, no matter the cost. And when the truth about her real motives was finally revealed, it left everyone speechless. I met my husband, Daniel, when we were both in our mid-20s. He was kind, supportive, and everything I had ever wanted in a partner. We got married after 3 years of dating, and not long after, we welcomed our beautiful daughter, Lily. From the moment she was born, she became the center of my world. But there was one problem that always lingered in the background. Daniel's mother, Margaret. She had never liked me. It was not outright hostility at first, just passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my job, and even the way I dressed. But after Lily was born, things escalated. Suddenly, every decision I made as a mother was up for debate. Margaret constantly compared me to my sister-in-law, Melissa, who had been struggling with infertility for years. She would sigh and say things like, "Melissa would have been such a great mother. She has so much love to give." I knew Melissa and her husband, Eric, wanted children, and I sympathized with them. But I never thought for a second that my mother-in-law would go as far as to suggest that I should give them my daughter. At first, I brushed off Margaret's comments, thinking they were just emotional outbursts. But as time went on, her words became more direct. "Think about it, dear," she said one evening while visiting. "Lily would have such a stable life with Melissa and Eric. They have a beautiful home, great careers, and they are desperate for a child." I laughed, assuming she was joking. But when I saw the serious expression on her face, my stomach twisted. She was not joking. And that was just the beginning. For the next year, Margaret subtly, yet persistently, pushed the idea that I was not capable of raising my daughter. She would make small, cutting remarks about how tired I always looked, how Lily would be better off with more structure, and how Melissa and Eric would be the perfect parents. At first, I ignored it, thinking Daniel would step in and tell her to stop. But he was always dismissive, brushing it off as just mom being mom. Then Margaret started getting more aggressive. One day, I caught her whispering to Lily, telling her how much Aunt Melissa and Uncle Eric loved her, and how one day she might live with them. When I confronted her, she had the audacity to say, "I am just preparing her for a better future." That was when I realized that this was not just an idea she was entertaining. This was something she genuinely believed should happen. Things escalated further when Melissa and Eric began treating Lily as if she were already theirs. They would take her from my arms at family gatherings, buy her expensive gifts, and even call themselves her second parents. I tried to set boundaries, but Margaret always made me seem unreasonable. "You should be grateful," she snapped at me once. "Most kids do not have so many people who love them." I was reaching my breaking point, but I never expected Margaret to take it to the next level. Then one day she did the unthinkable. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I was at home with Lily, playing with her in the living room, when I heard a firm knock at the door. When I opened it, I was shocked to see Margaret standing there with 2 other people, her lawyer and Melissa. Margaret's expression was calm, almost smug, as she handed me a thick envelope. "What is this?" I asked, my stomach twisting with anxiety. "Legal documents," she replied smoothly. "We are filing for custody of Lily." I stared at her, my hands shaking as I opened the envelope and skimmed through the papers. It was all there in black and white. Margaret and Melissa were claiming I was an unfit mother. The accusations were shocking. They claimed I was negligent, that I left Lily alone for hours, that I was struggling financially, and that I was emotionally unstable. Every word felt like a knife to my chest. None of it was true. "You cannot be serious," I breathed. "This is insane." Margaret gave me a tight smile. "It is not insane. It is what is best for Lily." Melissa stepped forward, her expression almost pleading. "We just want what is best for her. You are overwhelmed, and we can give her everything she needs." I felt like the floor had disappeared from under me. "How dare you?" I whispered, my voice shaking with rage. "You are trying to steal my child." Margaret let out a dramatic sigh. "You are not thinking clearly. If you just agree to this willingly, we will make sure you still get to see her." I could barely process what was happening. They had actually gone to a lawyer. They had actually prepared legal documents. They had been planning this for months, maybe even years. And the worst part, Daniel was nowhere to be found. I picked up my phone and called him, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. He answered after 3 rings. "You need to come home. Now." His voice was groggy. "What? Why?" "Your mother and sister are here with legal papers trying to take Lily from me." I nearly screamed. There was silence on the other end. Then he sighed. "Look, maybe you should just consider it." The world around me blurred. "What? They have a point," he said weakly. "You are always stressed, and Melissa and Eric can provide a better life for Lily." I felt my knees buckle, but I gripped the doorframe to stay upright. "So you knew about this?" My voice was barely a whisper. I did not stop them. That was when I realized that I was completely alone in this fight. And I was going to fight. I straightened my back and glared at Margaret. You are not taking my daughter from me. Margaret smirked. Then, we will see you in court. I held the phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My mind was racing. If what Sarah said was true, then Margaret had been pushing for my daughter to live with a couple who were deemed unfit to care for their own child. I had to act fast. Sarah, I need everything you can give me. Documents, messages, anything. She hesitated. I do not have much, but I remember things. I could write a statement. That would help, I reassured her. Anything can make a difference in court. There was a pause. You do not understand though, she whispered. Melissa is dangerous. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? Sarah took a deep breath. She did not just yell at her son. She would shake him when he cried. She locked him in his room for hours. And Eric, he would just leave when she got like that. My stomach turned. Sarah continued. The police got involved after a neighbor heard screaming. They found bruises on the baby, and that was it. Social services took him. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. I had no idea how deep this went. Margaret knows all of this? I asked. Of course, Sarah replied bitterly. She pulled every string she could to make it disappear. But the court did not budge. I suddenly felt sick. Margaret had tried to cover up child abuse. And now, she wanted my daughter to live in that house. My hands shook as I thanked Sarah and ended the call. I immediately dialed my lawyer, my voice trembling as I relayed everything. We need to get Sarah on record, he said firmly. Her testimony could be crucial. And we need those court documents about their previous case. I agreed, but I knew I could not wait for legal proceedings alone. I had to confront Margaret. That evening, I drove to her house. I stormed inside, finding her sipping tea like she had not been trying to rip my child away from me. How dare you? I seethed. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. You knew, I hissed. You knew Melissa and Eric lost custody of their son. You knew why. And yet, you wanted them to take Lily. For the first time, she looked caught off guard. That is not your concern. I stepped closer. Not my concern. That is my child. You tried to put her in a house where a baby was abused. Do you have any idea how vile that is? She scoffed, regaining her composure. Melissa and Eric have changed. And besides, you are an unfit mother. Lily deserves better. My blood boiled. You think a woman who abused her own baby is better? Margaret's lips pressed together. It was exaggerated. Do not lie to me, I snapped. I have a witness. I have the truth. And I am going to expose you for what you are. For the first time, Margaret looked nervous. You would not. Watch me. I turned and stormed out, my heart pounding. The battle was far from over, but I was ready. I sat in the courtroom, my hands gripping the armrests of my chair. My heart pounding so loudly that I was sure the judge could hear it. My mother-in-law sat across from me. Her expression one of cold determination. She had always looked at me as if I were an inconvenience. But today there was something more. A smug confidence that made my stomach churn. My lawyer, Miss Carter, leaned toward me. Stay calm, she whispered. Let them talk first. We will dismantle their claims piece by piece. The judge turned to my mother-in-law's lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who carried himself as if he had already won. State your client's case, the judge ordered. The lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Elaine Hartman, has grave concerns regarding the well-being of her granddaughter, Emily. She believes the child's mother, Ms. Rachel Carter, has repeatedly displayed irresponsible behavior that puts the child's safety at risk. Mrs. Hartman wishes to gain custody to provide a stable, nurturing environment for the child with her daughter and son-in-law, who are financially and emotionally better suited for parenthood. I clenched my fists under the table. How dare they? My daughter was not some prize to be handed over like a charity case. The judge raised an eyebrow. What specific evidence do you have to support this claim? Elaine's lawyer smirked. Your Honor, we have compiled reports from neighbors and acquaintances who have witnessed Ms. Carter neglecting the child, leaving her unattended, failing to provide adequate supervision, and showing signs of financial instability. That is a lie. I blurted before I could stop myself. Ms. Carter placed a hand on my arm, silently urging me to stay composed. The judge turned to me. Ms. Carter, you will have your chance to speak. Continue, counselor. Elaine sat with her arms crossed, watching me with an expression of faux pity. This is not about taking Emily away out of malice, she said in a carefully practiced tone. I love my granddaughter, and I want what is best for her. I could not hold back my anger anymore. Best for her. I repeated, my voice shaking. Is that why you have done nothing but undermine me as a mother since the day Emily was born? Is that why you are dragging me into court, lying about me to take my child away? The judge raised a hand. Miss Carter, control your emotions. You will have your turn. My lawyer stood now, her expression calm but firm. Your Honor, the claims against my client are entirely fabricated. We have multiple witnesses, including Emily's pediatrician, daycare workers, and close friends, who will testify that Rachel Carter is an attentive, loving, and responsible mother. In addition, we have financial records proving she is more than capable of providing for Emily's needs. She turned to Elaine and her lawyer. Furthermore, we have obtained records showing that Elaine Hartman has a history of manipulating legal proceedings for personal gain. This is not about Emily's well-being. It is about control. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Elaine's smirk faltered. The judge turned to her lawyer. How do you respond to this? The man cleared his throat. We would need more time to review these allegations, Your Honor. The judge shook his head. You have brought serious accusations into my courtroom with no solid evidence. Ms. Carter has presented compelling proof to the contrary. I am ruling in favor of Ms. Carter. Custody remains solely with her. This case is dismissed. Elaine gasped. No, this is a mistake. That woman is not fit to raise my granddaughter. The judge's gavel hit the desk. This is not up for debate, Mrs. Hartman. I exhaled a breath I did not realize I had been holding. The weight of months of stress lifted off my shoulders. My mother-in-law had tried to break me, but she had failed. Outside the courthouse, my best friend Anna hugged me tightly. You did it, she whispered. I knelt down and pulled Emily into my arms. Mommy, she said in her small, sweet voice. Yes, baby? Are we going home now? I kissed her forehead. Yes, sweetheart. We are going home. As we walked away, Elaine called out, her voice laced with bitterness. You will regret this, Rachel. Mark my words. I did not look back. She had no power over me anymore. I had won, and Emily was finally safe. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss an update.